Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. Today I'm here live with the one and only Dr. John Demartini. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. We just came from the personal development event of the year. It's been an incredible event. Dr. Demartini was speaking there. Jarek Robbins was speaking there. I had a session yesterday morning. And I was fascinated today about the session that you did on wealth building. I love money. I really like money. And I think that a lot of people need to understand what's stopping them to build wealth and also what strategies they can put in place to change this trend. Because some people will make money, lose money, or don't value money enough. So I love the session you did today. Could you expand a bit more first on why people that want money, on one side they say, I really want to become wealthy, but then they don't become wealthy. Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, I really rarely pay attention to what people say. I pay more attention to what they do. Because your life demonstrates what you really value. So if I ask 10,000 people at a talk, how many of you would like to be financially independent? Every hand will go up. And I'll ask then how many of you have financial independence, and most hands go down. So people have a fantasy about being financially independent, but what they actually have in their mind is the lifestyle of the rich and famous. They want to spend money on things that go down in value, consumables and depreciables. And they really don't have a desire to buy methodically over a long period of time, asset building, money producing income assets. So they have a fantasy. And that usually leads to a nightmare, and they end up beating themselves up. I asked today, how many of you have had anger to yourself, or beat yourself up kind of thing about your wealth? And the same hands went up that also didn't have any financial independence. I said, so the hierarchy of your values, the things you really value, tell me how you spend your money. So if you don't really have a value on buying assets long term, and you want to buy immediate gratifying consumable goods to have an immediate gratifying lifestyle, then what you're saying is that I want to work for money. I don't want to have money work for me. And so people don't get ahead financially. And the average person worldwide doesn't save enough money to ever get financially independent. I mean, they save 1% to 3% at most. And if you're 20 years old and you save 10%, at 65 you could be financially independent if you gave the same lifestyle. At 30 years old, 20%. At 40 years old, 30%. At 50 years old, 40%. At 60 years old, 50%. So the longer you wait, the less probable that'll ever happen. And most people are statistics, depending on their children and on some sort of social system to take care of them as they get old. Because they say they want financial independence, but the fact is their life doesn't demonstrate that. So the first thing I do is not pay attention to what they say, because those are usually fantasies. I'm interested in what their life is demonstrating.
Yeah. I want to say a big shout out as well to Dalip. Thank you very much. In fact, it says, this is gold, action represents values. Absolutely. We have Mike, Steve, Michelle Raymond. Thank you very much for joining, guys. If you have any question for Dr. Demartini, please type them below in the comments so then we can answer those questions live. And so, Dr. Demartini, you mentioned that the importance of the fact that when you look at the action, when you look at what they have, it determines also what's more important for them.
Yes.
So let's say, actually, you made a great example today about maybe a mom that that has children and they want to become wealthy, but there is another priority. So can you please expand on the fact that how people make their choices?
Yes.
And then how can we turn this around?
Well, every human being has a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most important to least important in their life, at any moment in their life. And tell me what those values are, and I'll tell you how they're going to spend money. Because when you receive money, you spend money on things that you value most first, second most second, down the line. So if you have a very high value on education, you'll put a lot of money into your children's education, for instance, but you may not have any savings or investments. At one time when I was in my 20s, I had such a high value on learning that I would go and buy 50 books a week on average and read them. And so every time I get extra money, it was go and buy a library. because I had a value on learning.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any assets working for me. I had intellectual assets. I had what is called genuine wealth, which was intellectual property inside my head. But unless I have a financial value, it won't convert into any form of cash and sort of asset that starts working for me. So I had to have a shift in my values to have a financial change, which I did at age 28. But many people don't realize what their values are. And they don't even realize that they come up with excuses. Well, I can't afford, no matter what I do, I can't get ahead. What it really means is that I have a higher value on buying other things or having a certain life standard or style more than having my money work for me. And so as long as that's the case, no matter how much money you can...
Yeah.
I had a client that I consulted with in Florida that made $6.29 million 1 year. $6.29 million.
It's nice.
It's good income. And he said at the end, he asked me to consult with him. When I got into his consulting day, I found out that he was $327,000 in debt with the government for tax. He had a fancy car, a series of cars, fancy parties, fancy travels, fancy home, fancy yacht. He had everything that was a depreciable and consumable, but he had no savings and no investments whatsoever. Even his house was a lifestyle. He's not getting rental income. He had nothing that was producing income, and he's making that kind of income. And there's a secretary, an assistant, there's only be paying $24,000 a year. A little assistant was saving $400 out of her paycheck every month towards savings and towards investments. She was closer to financial independence than he was. So it doesn't matter how much you make. What matters is how you manage what you make. And the hierarchy of your values determines how you manage it. So tell me what your values are, and I'll tell you where the money's going to go. So first of all, you have to determine what that is. So you can be honest with yourself. The second thing is, if you decide you really do want to be financially independent, you have to have the values that will lead you there. And there's ways of shifting values by stacking up benefits of values that actually lead to asset production and a lower value on things that keep consuming it. So there's a way of shifting values so you can increase the probability of perceiving ideas and opportunities and taking actions on them that help build wealth.
Right. Thank you very much, Doctor. Now, here we have Dalib that is saying, how do we figure out our values for sure? That's one question. We have Danny, which is just logged in, Marine, Nicola, Veronica, Cindy, Wolfgang. Great. Thank you for joining, Wolfgang, Victor. Okay, so the question from Dalip was, so how do we figure out what our values are? Yeah. That's something that you talk a lot about in your breakthrough experience and also in your books. So where is the starting point? Okay. So we can be aware?
Well, to make it easier, I hope this is appropriate, I have on my website a value determination process that's complementary that we put on there because there's so many thousands of people that are asking that question.
It's like create something.
And I for a while I had people on the phones doing that all day, and it was crazy. So we put together a beautiful format that they can do that's private, that nobody will see. They'll only be one to see it. They can come back and do it again. They can see the changes. They can watch their own value structure. And it's complimentary on the website, just drdemartini.com. And what this says, it'll take them about 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes max. And they just have to be really honest. It's going to ask you 13 questions. How do you fill your space? So things that are really valuable to you, you keep around you, and things that aren't, you toss. So things that are close to you that you keep in your personal space is valuable, and things that aren't, you want to the trash, the garage, or something else. So you look at how you fill your space. What is demonstrated as valuable in your space? If children are, you'll see children all around you in your space. If investments are high in value, you'll have some sort of investment magazines and things that'll be really investments. If education's valuable, you might see books and class information. Whatever you fill your space with tells you what you value. The next one is time. You find time, spend time, and make time for things that are really valuable to you. The third one is what energizes you. You have more energy at the end of the day doing when you do things that you really love and that's high in your values, and you're drained on things that aren't. I mean, I can go all day long. I've been doing speaking all day for many days. Yeah. And so what happens is you look at what energizes you. The fourth one is, well, how do you spend your money? Well, you make time, you find money, you make money, you spend money on things that are valuable to you. So you got to look at your disbursements and look at where's your money going. If 80% of your money is going towards a mortgage, then you obviously, whatever that represents to you, security, home, then it's obviously valuable to you. To me, I wouldn't put all that kind of money into a home because it's not high enough on my values. It doesn't produce anything. It has a family dynamic, but there's other ways of getting that without having to put up and rob yourself of asset producing. But the point is that whatever your values, that's what you're going to spend your money on too. And then you look at where you're most ordered and organized, where you're most disciplined, reliable, and focused, that nobody has to remind you to do things. What do you think about? What do you visualize? What do you internally dialogue with yourself about most, about how you want your life that are showing evidence of coming true? What do you converse with other people about most? And what do you keep wanting to bring the conversation to? Because that tells you what you value. What inspires you and what's common to the people who inspire you? And what is it the three most consistent goals that you've had for the longest period of time that are coming true, that have evidence of true? Not fantasies, not things you hope that'll someday happen that don't happen, but things that come true. And the last one is, what do you love to study, read about, learn about most that nobody has to remind you to do? You just love going to that part of the library and love to go on YouTube and read that, watch that. What do you love learning about? If you look carefully, those are 13 value determinants that if you write 3 answers for each and look at those 39 answers, if you're honest and be objective and look at what your life demonstrates, not what you hope or wish or fantasize or what it used to be, but what it is now, it'll give you a repeating pattern. And the ones that show up repeatedly, the most frequent, is your highest value. Second most, second highest. And third most, third highest value. And it gives you an indication of what your life is truly demonstrating, not the social idealisms that you got from your mother, your father, your preacher, your teacher, and society's expectations and ideologies. Because many people, when they think of values, they think of truth and integrity and peace and all these ideologies. And that's not what your life demonstrates. Yeah. Your life demonstrates what's valuable to you. So that's how I help people determine it.
That's absolutely. So, guys, we're going to put the link of Dr. Demartini website so you can take the value assessment. I'm definitely going to take it again because I think last time I took it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's been updated.
I'm going to do it again. Looking forward to it. So is the website again is
just drdemartini.com. Demartini, DEMARTINI.com. So just drdemartini.com. That's it.
Brilliant. So Dilip says, yes, this was really helpful. Thank you. To wrap up, now we are talking, so we understood how to identify them. You mentioned that it's possible to change those values.
Yes. That
these are not fixed. It's something that we inherit somehow, but we can change
your values are changing throughout your life, and you can do it passively by events that are controlling your life, or you can do it actively by engaging in reassociating new perceptions on each of the value systems. If you stack up advantages on a value system, it rises up on your list of values. If you stack up drawbacks, it goes down lower. So you can consciously rearrange your values at will, and all of a sudden now perceive life differently and act differently accordingly. So I've been paid many times to help people restructure their values so they can become wealthy. And I have thousands of people that now have wealth if they didn't have wealth before. Mm-hmm. So it's totally doable. And it's not that hard, really. It just takes some little bit of effort and time, but you can do it. And I mentioned 6 things that they could do to stack up the benefits.
Yes, please.
There are 6 things I found common to the wealthiest billionaires that I've interviewed. And that is, they had 6 things. One was they desired to build a business that served vast numbers of people. And if you don't have a desire to serve people, it's sort of unrealistic to expect yourself to be very fortunate, because you're not going to get fortunate sitting on your butt. You're going to do it by doing a service to people and filling people's needs and getting compensated fairly.
Absolutely.
The second one is to manage that business more effectively and efficiently so it's maximizing profits. If you're not working on the business and all you're doing is working in the business, it may not maximize too much profit. So you need to make sure it's efficient. With Ricardo's law, to look at where you have the competitive advantage in the marketplace, Parkinson's law, Pareto's principle, the 20% that gives you 80% results. Basically learning how to get really down to what is the highest priority things that produce the greatest results, so you're not majoring in minors and minoring in majors. The third one is the 200 benefits of actually saving an ever-progressive portion of the profits, because that's the number one thing that made me financially independent, is that method. I increased my savings every quarter, like clockwork, 10%. And what happens is every 2 years, the amount you're saving, it doubles. So I started out at $200, and 3 years later it was $2,000, and then 2 years later it was $4, and 2 years later it was $8, and $16, and $32, $64, $128. I was up to $256,000 a month in savings. And I was saving more than I imagined I would someday have in a year. And it was quite amazing what happened when I methodically, strategically structured an accelerated savings and investment structure. And it made a huge difference. And that's the one most significant thing I ever did in my financial career. And then the fourth one is 200 benefits of investing in ever greater degrees of leverage. And that's learning how to leverage your brand, learning how to use other people's money to help you in purchase of assets, learning how to rise up with little higher risk ratios on assets, and develop leverage. And then the next one is 200 benefits of accumulating a fortune. Because if you don't have a desire to accumulate a fortune, you'll start to get financially independent and start buying cluttering stuff that just picks up your garage, fills up your garage with stuff. Be surprised how many people buy a house, they have a car in it the first year, 5 years later they can't get the car in, and 10 years later there's no way they can get the car in because they fill up with stuff. And then they have to go get a bigger house because they got stuff to then transport and pay ridiculous amounts for. Then the last one is 200 benefits of creating a financial cause that leaves a legacy. Now, this is a big one because if you don't have a big enough cause to grow wealth, you probably will plateau it. You need some big cause, something to dedicate your life to that is meaningful, that why you'd want to build a fortune beyond just needs and beyond financial independence. And so those are 6 things that if you stack up the 200 benefits of these, by the time you're done, and this is not 200 benefits of driving that Rolls. I've had a Rolls, and those are transient things, and penthouses and yachts and stuff. I've done all those things, but those are not what I'm talking about. These are the benefits of doing those 6 things, not the benefits of once you've done it, you have money, now you can go and spend money. So it's the benefit of actually building wealth, not spending it.
Thank you very much. In fact, when I was listening to this part of the talk that Dr. Demartini gave throughout the weekend, that really stuck with me. And in particular, our non-executive director Jeff, he was like, "This is what I've been doing all my life." It's like you just made it in, because he is really great in terms of wealth management and investing. And when you mentioned the way you were saving money and doubling the profits, he said that he did it unconsciously, just didn't know. It just made sense to him to do something like this. And in fact, knowing him, he has a huge value in terms of financial freedom.
That's right.
And he always said it. So no matter what other people were telling him around, he was going to invest, he was going to build businesses, he was going to serve people, because that's what he wanted for himself, and that's what was driving him naturally. Yeah,
that's what he was doing naturally. That's because he had a high value in it.
Because he already had a high value from it, and that came because he didn't have much money.
There's a thing called multi-generational wealth, which I have the opportunity to interact with people and families with. And if you were born with a kind of a silver spoon and everything's been taken care of you, you may squander money and not know how to actually build it. So it's best for your parents not to rescue you and make it too easy on you. So if you were bitching about your family making you accountable, be grateful. That's the people that usually become wealthy. The people that have had everything handed to them, they usually don't have a void that drives a value that can push them to be patient and to override immediate gratification.
Yes, I love this. We had a great comment from the one and only Michelle Raymond. Said, "This is pure gold. I've grown up on wealth management and had 3 properties by the time I was 30 on being multi-occupancy." You're doing amazing, Michelle. Thank you very much for sharing. And then thank you very much, Dalip, for writing down all the 6 steps here in the comments. I really appreciate it. Now, you're doing an incredible seminar training called the Breakthrough Experience, and that's where people identify their value systems, they change their value system, and you have one coming up in 16 and 17th of February 2019.
I don't know the exact dates.
I know, I read your brochure, so I know, I'm saying it for you. 16th, 17th of February, Breakthrough Experience. What can people expect when they come to the Breakthrough Experience?
Well, I don't know what they'll expect because they may have a false expectation, but what I can deliver, I'm going to share with people, first of all, principles that I've been accumulating for 46 years. People look at me and sometimes they go, 46 years? I've been teaching 46 years. I'm 64. And there's certain principles about human behavior that a lot of people don't know about. I tried to share a few of them this weekend. And there's a lot. It's Paul Dirac, the Nobel Prize winner, said, "It's not that we don't know so much; we know so much that isn't so." We can get sometimes infiltrated with ideas that aren't really the most profound and most solid information. There's a lot of hype, as you know.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some principles that I am absolutely certain that you can stand on the shoulders of giants with. These are things that will build the foundation for an amazing life. I also give you an insight about what values are and the impact values have, how to determine your values. We're going to actually do that. Talk about how emotions distract you, impulses and instincts, infatuation, resentments, things you seek and avoid, and all the distractions that keep you centered and focused and present and purposeful. I'm going to show you how to dissolve those so they don't distract you, because that's a very common thing we get. And I'm sure you've had a moment when you've been infatuated with somebody and you couldn't get them out of your mind, and then you started sacrificing to be with them, and then that distracted you, and eventually found out, oh, that had a backfire. Or sometimes you resented somebody and you're wanting to change them and putting all the energy into changing them relative to you instead of you relative to other people. All these are distractions instead of actually being centered and being poised and being present and setting goals that are congruent and then chunking them strategically into actions that you can do each day that you know will give you a result. So I'm interested in that. I'm not interested in hype. I'm not interested in fluffy stuff. I'm not interested in rah-rah. I'm interested in mechanical things that have proven to work in my own life and also in the thousands of people I've taken the breakthrough experience, which is nearly 100,000 people.
Wow.
And and then I did the method, the Demartini method, which is a method I use to dissolve pretty well any emotional baggage that's stored in the subconscious mind that's causing us to seek and avoid in milliseconds before we even have cognitive thought and decisions. And show you how to dissolve the baggage and all the guilt and the shame and the pride and the righteousness and all the things that keep you from having sustainable fair exchange with people. Yeah. Because that's not how you build a business unless you have sustainable fair exchange. If you're proud, you'll talk down to your customer and employees, and eventually that backfires and humbles you. If you're minimizing, you'll sacrifice your profit margins because you think, oh, they're more important than you, and you'll exaggerate how they are. But if you have fair exchange and you have equity and equanimity, you have the most sustainable state. So I show you that science of how to do that, and I make you do it. So it's not theory, you actually do it. We literally spend hours practically doing it. And then I show you how to own the traits of the greats, because as long as you're subordinating to people around you that you think have something you don't, you're too humble to admit what you see in them is inside you, you're going to hold yourself back. You're going to play small. You know, people have many times a fear of public speaking. You and I don't. We have a fear of not speaking.
Absolutely.
But there are people that have a fear of public speaking, and it's not the fear of speaking. They speak all day long to people. It's the fear of speaking in front of somebody they think is smarter, more successful, has more wealth, better relationship, more socially connected, more physically fit, or more spiritually aware. As long as they're comparing themselves to people they put on pedestal and not owning what they see in them. So you can't see something you admire in somebody without having it. You wouldn't be admiring it if it wasn't reminding you of something you're just too humble to admit you have, but you have. Yeah. So I'm going to show you how to own the traits of the greats so you're not subordinating to people, because that's the number one thing that clouds the clarity of purpose in life. Number one thing that makes you minimize yourself and think, oh, I should be something I'm not. The number one thing that actually makes you get injected values of other people that cloud the clarity of what you want to dedicate your life to, and it disempowers you. So I'm going to show you how to break through that. I'm going to show you the secret behind the secret, left out of the secret, which is what I call the manifestation formula. And there's many more. There's going to be some thousands of gems that have come through the program. And you're also going to see people's life change in front of you, and you're going to see a lot of parts of you through other people that you'll take home and have as gems.
So guys, I'm going to be there because it's an experience that I want to go through. I want to experience. I got a lot of friends that have been through the breakthrough experience, and they said that is an absolute must. So we're going to put the links in the comment, so then you can join. You can see when the next one is coming. If you're watching from, if you're not in the UK, you're watching from somewhere else, there are going to be dates in different parts of the world. I mean, you're always traveling, you're always delivering, you're always teaching. That's what you do.
I research, write, travel, teach. I do usually 43 breakthroughs a year somewhere each weekend. And then I do the other programs on the other weekends. I'm a full-time teacher.
So you know that wherever you are in the world, there's going to be someone that is going to be close to you, so you can come and attend. I want to thank you, Dr. Demartini. It's been an absolute pleasure to have a dinner earlier, to be here and interview you, to listen to your teachings, because as I mentioned also at the beginning, you had a deep and profound impact in the way I changed my life, and starting from the first time I saw you in Secret, to all the other books that I've read and the YouTube videos that I've watched, and everything that is saying right now, guys, make sure you put it in practice, because again, if you just have the knowledge without doing anything about it, not much is gonna change.
Yeah. To think you know something without applying it is not really to know it.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, and I'll see you the next episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. Remember that if you haven't subscribed, maybe you're listening to the recording. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, hit that sexy, juicy subscribe button. If you are following me right now, watching live on Facebook, thank you very much for being with us. And remember one thing, that together we grow exponentially. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you.